The Valerian Council had made their decision with cold, calculated precision. Humanity would be tested, not through diplomacy, not through cultural exchange, but through what they termed controlled adversity protocols. They selected Earth's colony on Kepler 442b, home to 15,000 souls, and severed all supply lines. No warning, no explanation, just silence from the stars. Commander Elena Reeves stood in the operations center, watching the last transport ship disappear into the void. The Valorians had been clear in their final transmission, survived 6 months with no external aid, and humanity would earn a seat among the galactic powers. Fail, and Earth's expansion into the cosmos would end permanently. An experiment, the lead counselor had said, his crystalline features reflecting no emotion, to determine if your species possesses the necessary resilience. Elena's jaw had tightened. She saw it differently. This was dominance posturing wrapped in academic language. This was punishment for humanity's rapid expansion, for refusing to bow and scrape before species that had ruled the stars for millennia. They expected humans to break, to beg, to prove their suspicions that Earth's children were too weak, too dependent, too soft for the realities of cosmic civilization. She called it a declaration of war. The first week tested their infrastructure. The colony's fusion reactor operated at 60% efficiency, with no replacement parts available. The agricultural domes had enough nutrients for 4 months, maybe 5 with strict rationing. The medical bay lacked supplies for any major crisis. By every calculation, they were designed to fail. But the Valorians had made a critical error. They had studied human technology, human logistics, human regulations. They hadn't studied human spite. Elena divided the population into response teams. Engineers who had never touched a mining drill learned to extract rare earth elements from the planet's crust using nothing but determination and improvised equipment. Botanists crossbred their crop varieties, creating hybrid strains that grew in half the time with twice the nutrient density. Children barely old enough to read became apprentices in workshops where necessity mothered invention at a pace that would have terrified safety inspectors back on Earth. The Valorians had cut them off from the supply chain, so humanity built a new one from scratch. When the reactor's containment field began failing in week 3, they didn't send distress signals. They cannibalized the colony's entertainment systems, repurposed the holographic projectors, and created a makeshift magnetic bottle that held together through sheer audacity and principles of physics that the engineers swore she'd invented in a fever dream. By month 2, they weren't just surviving. They were adapting. The colony that had relied on Earth for everything now manufactured its own components, grew its own food varieties, and developed medical techniques born from desperation and brilliance in equal measure. Elena watched it all with fierce pride. Every improvised solution was an act of defiance. Every breakthrough was a middle finger to the species that had written them off. The Valerian observation team maintained their silent vigil from orbit. They took their notes, ran their analyses, and waited for the inevitable collapse their models predicted with 97% certainty. On the final day of the 6th month, Elena stood outside the colony's main dome as the Valerian diplomatic vessel descended. The lead counselor emerged, his expression inscrutable as he surveyed the settlement that shouldn't exist. "You have passed the experiment," he announced formally. Elena stepped forward, her eyes hard as steel. "You tested whether we could survive your cruelty. We proved we could thrive despite it." She gestured to the colony. Behind her, to the people who had transformed catastrophe into triumph. "You wanted to measure our resilience. What you actually measured was your own arrogance." The counselor's crystalline features shifted slightly. Surprise, perhaps, or something close to respect. "Humanity doesn't need your permission to belong among the stars," Elena continued. "We were already here, and now every species in this galaxy knows that we don't break. We don't beg, and we sure as hell don't forget." The Valorians had called it an experiment. History would remember it as the day humanity declared they would never be tested again.